Welcome in, everyone. This is our weekly flow alerts recap for the week of December 9th, 2024 to December 13th, 2024. We are going to go over the flow that was posted throughout the week, kind of touch on some tips and tricks as well. So let's kind of get started here. And this will be some of these pieces of the flow were posted publicly. Majority of these are posted in Stock Hub, and there's a couple that will be in the flow and charts as well. So just to kind of show everybody that just not pulling random flow in, but I do have my flow posted in Discord as well, real time. So this is all the flow that was posted that week. So let's get started here. So first up, we had these Walmart 1227.99 calls coming in at about 58 cents per contract. And let's go back to Monday, since these were Monday. These were the 9th, and this was an intraday cut, actually. So let's go like this. So this is a good example of why it's always important. Even if you don't have unusual whales, you should have alerts if they hit a certain volume point. So this will be a good tip and trick right here. So here's our whale entry. And when you look at, and sometimes on the older flow, it's not going to populate. So that's not going to be a good example right there, but good example here as to an intraday cut. This whale filled 1,400 contracts at that 57 range. We can see this red bar coming just right after. Just doing a visual on it, you can kind of see it's the same size. You can see we had 3,300 contracts traded that day. This whale cut these at 31. So this whale cut these, they were looking for that intraday move on Walmart. The whale cut these at 46%. I don't let something drop that far, especially if I'm following random flow. I would have a tighter stop loss on something like that, about 15%, 20%. But a good example of an intraday cut. You can see all that volume there, and just doing the math here as well, 1440 there, about 1450-ish there, give or take. You can see all that volume on the day. Checking open interest the next day. Didn't even carry over. So this whale cut those the same day. So this first one was a loss for this whale. So a good example of an intraday cut there too as well. So next up we had the 124.25 TSM 195 puts. These were filled at 780, and this premium here, the premium's a lot larger. I'm just saving these contracts. These are contracts I save so I can follow them easier. But let's take a peek here. Let's go back to the 9th, because these made a very nice move. Here's your 9th here. Your whale's coming in at 780 right here. This is when it came in and it was posted. Let's take a peek at the flow. So you can see this is pretty much textbook flow that I'm looking for. You can see that IV increasing as the flow comes in. You can see that spot price is increasing as well here as we come in. Little wider bid ask here. You can see that getting larger here, and again with that spot being filled right at the ask, that is textbook flow there. And let's go back to here on the net premiums. So 9th, it was kind of flat for the day, but you could see that put net premium was up a little bit there. So these hitting a high, and I'm going to be going to the high of the week here. So again, you're not going to exit at the peak, but we're just going to have to go over the full range of the contracts. So 781 here, these hit a high of 1205 on the 12th. 1205 on the 12th here. I lied. It's 1295 here. For some reason, I was looking at the 12th. So you can see that all that volume the day coming in on the 9th, seeing all that volume turn into open interest. And then we hit 1295 that next day. So these contracts running from 7.8 to 1295, that's a 66% return there. And let's go on to these SPY puts, the 124.25 600 puts. And again, some of these are a little further out. You can see these are 153 days out. Sometimes a little harder to track those, but I'm looking for intra-week moves on these. This is actually a flow and charts play, so I'll touch on that next. But our 124.25 600 puts, and again a nice example here of a clean entry and exiting here as well. So we can see this spy whale here coming in. Again, I always look at the IV, and that bid ask on the spot should always be looking at the raw flow. You can't just take a peek and say it's ask side, it's a buy. Not always necessary. But here we are. We have repeated hits ascending fill. You can see that IV coming up here. Repeated hits ascending fill. Then we had some repeated hits come in after that. Again, all ask side fills here. Do have a little bid side fill here. Sometimes this can kind of throw me off, but with that IV increasing there, I'm still considering this a buy. But you can see that spot price increasing. This looks like a buy. And at the time, let's take a peek at our thing. So December 9th, this was for the 10th. So, okay. We had that 60, no, this was for the 9th. Okay. Little math problem there. Okay. So we had 6,700 contracts traded. Can see all that carry over, big majority of it carrying over. So here's that fill, 677. Can see they hit a high of 772 here for about 13.86%. Looks like they could have took some off here about 705-ish, maybe a little more here towards the high of the day at 741. Looks like they could be carrying a little more over, and contracts are at about 685 right now, just a little over their asking price. So good sign there. Looks like they might be holding a couple, but secured a lot of that profits. And again, you can see that visual here, which is really nice, where you see that big, huge ask side green candle, and then the short one, and then you can kind of see that here. And then if you look at the actual bid side flow as well, you can see that IV is decreasing now when it's being sold, and you can see that spot price does kind of come up here a little bit, but that bid's just going up a little bit there. Repeated his descending fill, that's a sign of a sell there. And on your 9th, just that small little tick up in that net put premium. That put volume was up a lot though, so good little trade there. That running from 678 to 772. I'm looking for about 15%, 13.86%. Very, very close. You shouldn't be letting a trade that's 13% out turn red anyways. Should always have stops on. So moving on here, we have these AMDs, and this is a flow and charts one. So I'm going to pull up my flow and charts for those. Let's see, December 9th, my flow and charts. Oh, I should probably go to the correct area. So flow and charts. So with this, I like to kind of lay out a little idea. So we have that multiple ask side fills there. I'll kind of show what's going on there. Give a little guidance on it as well. So I was looking, this whale's a little longer term flow. The flow overlaps earnings. I'd look for a bounce off that 130.87 spot for a break and a breakthrough that uptrend. So this one I was kind of looking off, bounce off that 130.87 spot. This one, let's kind of look at the chart here first. So that 130.87 spot. So I was looking at this on the weekly just because these contracts were a little further out. Let's zoom in here on the daily and take a peek. So you can see when we did hit that 130.87 spot about right here, you could have took this up as a scalp. Let's see, give or take right here about. So that 130.87 spot moved all the way up here to about 132. That's a $2 move. If you wait for a discounted entry, that's a nice little return there. This whale is actually currently down though. Not too bad though, but let's look at that flow. So on the 5, 16, 145 calls, average is about 1150 on here. Let's see, 1150, 1145-ish. 1169, there we go. So these are sitting at about 972 right now. these contracts only did hit about a high. They did come back up here to about break even at 1162. So that whale could have got out at break even, but again, 153 days on these. Sometimes a little difficult just to kind of review something with that much time on there. The whale's on a longer term time frame, but these, only hit about 4% for that whale, but contracts are sitting at about 972 right now. This whale is down about 15% on those. Not horrible with 153 days. You can do what you want with this information, but that spot was the spot I was looking for a little bounce possibly. We got our bounce. And kind of looking at the flow, you can just see it's multiple ask side hits. And you look at that day as well here, except this was the 10th these came in. So you had that kind of dive on both the net call and put premiums, but big spike in that net call premium the next day. So we'll kind of see what happens. So something to monitor here would be this flow. So same with this other A and B. I won't spend too much time on here. This one looks like they could have took maybe some off here. With these being on the 9th, again, can see that average 1338-ish, 1325-ish or so. These hitting 1318. Probably took some off here, possibly. We'll have to see how that open interest is there. But again, pretty much the same setup as the other whale. They got in, they came in at about the same time actually, so it's probably the same person. Can't 100% say, but can keep an eye on that if you're interested in maybe chasing still. All right, so next up we are on to the 11th. So coin, again, kind of one that's just hanging around right now. So here's our whale entry at 17:01:17. Let's take a peek at the flow. And again, crypto's getting a lot of stuff going on right now with Bitcoin going over 100,000. So let's take a peek at the flow. So IV kind of chops down a little bit here, but it's only on one contract, so it doesn't really throw me off too bad. Do have it come back up here a little bit. Drops a little bit here, but again, you look at that bid ask and that spot fill, looks like a buy to me. At the time, let's take a peek. So we are looking at the 11th. That net call premium has been up the last 2 days, kind of down a little bit yesterday, but 2 days of really good net call premium. A lot of call volume here as well on the 12th. And this whale, 1701, these actually hit 1907 here on the 12th, which gives this whale about a little max return of 12.18%. You can kind of see where it came up here a little bit, but again, the whale's a little longer term. I'd say mid-longer term here, 20 days out. Probably looking for a bigger move up in crypto still, but again, on a personal level, I'm not going to let something about that 12, even 10%. 10% you should have at least your stops on for break even. Something up 10%, that's a good return. I aim for at least 15%, but I'm not going to let something 10% turn red. Should always have a stop on. I like moving them up, usually 5-10% increments. Trailing stops are a very nice tool if your broker has them. But your coin, looks like this whale's still in for the most part. So let's go on now. So our next one was a flow and charts one as well. So let's start with the call out here. So Reddit, we had a large whale on the 12/20 172.5 for 600 contracts. Let's look at the flow here. So again, you can see it's a clean entry. I'll show everybody the raw flow feed here too in a second. You can see that IV increasing. And this is kind of how the flow feed looked. It was just these two in here. So you can see that IV jump right when the big size comes in and the premium. Little wider bid ask here being filled at the spot. Can see I said I wanted to play this up to that top of that channel here. And you can see, so the whale's more short term. I'd look for a bounce out of the middle of this channel. You could get a further out contract if you want to avoid that aggressive theta. look for that possible run up to about 170 at the top of the channel. So let's take a peek at the chart first. So this was on that day. So we came up, opened up about here. We ran up and hit the top of that channel right where we were estimated to kind of top out there. A little higher than I initially had, but not a bad thing there. And then we obviously ran up Friday. We're sitting there testing the top of that again, and that's on the daily. And let's look at the flow here. So here's your 11th, your flow 6, and this was also called out as a flow alert at 6. So you could have got that same day, and then it was posted in flow and charts later. These hitting a high of 825 on the 12th. Very nice move there. From 6 to 825, that gives you a 37.5% return. Looks like that whale could be taking some off here at 699-ish. Have to verify that open interest on Monday. And again, you look at that net call premium over the last 7 days or so. Big spike in net call, big spike in net put that day, net call, put on Friday. Have to see how that moves out. But these running from 6 to 825. This was a flow and charts, so 37% on those. Zim, these are sitting at about 125. This was a whale entry on the 221.17.16 put. Again, 69 days out. Longer time frame on those. Sitting at about 89 right now. The whale's down on those. Could have seen, looks like they may have added in here. So the 11th was our initial entry day. Looks like they could have added in here more on the 12th here. Could have averaged down. Can see that volume carrying over. So those 27,000 or 20,000 open interest on these. Won't spend too much time on this since it hasn't made a move, but you can see a lot of net put premium spiking in here with put volume. Next up we had SMCI 110.50 calls. These are down a little bit right now. SMCI just got taken out of the NASDAQ, and there was news on it after hours yesterday, so interesting to see what happens with this after hours. And you look at the last 7 days of net call premium on this, big spike here on the 11th. Not a lot anywhere else here. I mean, a little yesterday towards close, but not a ton. And these are running at about 103 right now. So this whale is down a nice 37% on these, but 27 days left on them. Have to see how that moves. So next up we had CVS then. 221.47.5 put. So here's your whale. 224 was their entry. These hitting a high of 323 yesterday. So this whale looks like they're still in, but these contracts hit a high of 44.20%. Take a peek at the quick flow. Again, you can see that IV staying the same there, but that ask side, that spot being filled at the ask side, good sign there. It was a buy. You look at that net premium. Last 7 days, majority of it is bearish net put premium. So that whale, I mean, here's your entry. You can see it's a clean opening trade. You can see majority of that carrying over into the 13th. We had that gap down there. You can see that yellow line here. CVS moving down pretty much the last 7 days. Small run up on Friday, and then kind of just more of a gap down on Friday here, and then kind of little run up after. So could be exiting some at the ask there, but looks like they closed at about 266 from that 224 entry. So moving on here. So now we're moving into Friday, and again on some of the longer term stuff here, probably not going to see a massive move, so I'll kind of just touch on these a little more quickly. IBIT. So this is an interesting one because you have that ask side, and then you have this no side. So you'll want to check this volume and open interest on Monday. But contracts being opened at 325, sitting at about 313, down 4%. You can see that net call premium was up Friday. Let's just take a quick peek here. So spike in that IV as it comes in. Not right at the ask, but still a little wider bid ask here, being filled towards the ask. MRVL, these made a nice little intraday move. So I can move this back to 1 day. Here is your entry, 136. These hit a high of the day towards the end of the day at 177. I've got 197 for a high. So 197 would give us 137 to 197, about 43.80%. Nice little intraday move. Can see that net call premium up for most of the day. Looking at that raw flow, again, as that flow starts to come in, the repeated hits ascending fill, jump in IV goes up, spot price goes up. Good intraday move there. The next ones we have Dash. This is a very interesting one, and we were talking a lot about this in Discord. 18,000 contracts traded against 14 open interest. This is all ask side flow coming in. Going to want to check that open interest on Monday, but I'm going to make an educated guess the majority of this carries over. Whales sitting at about 343 for an average if they've been at it all day. Contracts are sitting at 340 right now, down maybe about 2% on the day, 27 days. That net put premium really up there. And you look at the last 7 days, this doesn't get a lot of activity. And look where we were, kind of up. We were at 179 and then we dropped almost $10 there. So that's interesting. I mean, that's a huge spike in net put premium. That'll be an interesting one to watch. SPY getting 48 days out. These 570 only hit about 590 intraday. Nothing worth taking profits on or anything. Sitting closing about 545. Whales down 4%. Nothing major. I mean, that net put premiums up through the day. Holdings. So I like to kind of look at both just to get an idea of what the holdings usually push up SPY. So I mean, it's important to know what the holdings are doing. A lot of net call premium on the holdings. Your ask side net put premium on the SPY is up though. The interesting thing though is when you look at the market tide for yesterday though, your two leaders, I'd say top two, top three here that pushed up the market tide and could be pushing up the holdings would be your Avgo and Tesla. Look at the net premiums here compared to the other ones. These are almost 3 times that of the next leader in NVIDIA. That is what is pushing this up. So something to keep an eye on there. So those sitting down about 4% or so on those SPY puts. The 321.14 lunar calls. Again, 250, hit 260. Not a huge move intraday at all. Closed about 255, up 2%. Huge spike in that net call premium as well. Look at the last 7 days. Huge spike back here on the 6th. Big spike here on the 9th. And then we just had a big spike now. So interested to see what happens with this one. Then last but not least, we had SMCI. Again, these came in right before close. Here's your whale. And I mean, this is where that net call premium really spiked into close. So 805, closed at 802. I mean, this whale, if SMC opens where it is now, isn't going to be very happy because SMC is down like 4%. But yeah, those last 4 are kind of harder to track just with them being longer term and coming in right towards close on a Friday. Harder to track, but if that's kind of our flow recap for the week. A little slower week with CPI, PPI not throwing a lot of flow out there. Our flow and charts, which are the trades that I take, I mean, we had a good week if you would have took those. And yeah, coming up this week, we have FOMC, might be a slower week again. But that is all I have. If you're interested in trying unusual whales, I do have a discount code that I will leave in the description below. If you're interested in joining Stock Hub, very affordable. You get a lot of knowledge in here as well. Have a great weekend, everyone.